Hello and welcome back to Andertons TV. My name's Oz and I'm here with Mark from Nektar.
Hi, how are you doing, Oz?
I'm very well here. We're looking at some. What are we looking at, Mark? Why are we here? Why are we here? What are we all here for?
We are here to talk about the new Panorama CS12, which is the latest channel strip controller from Nektar.
Okay.
I don't know how much you know about Nektar or how much your viewers might know about Nektar.
Absolutely nothing, which I think arguably makes me the perfect person for this, because I would like to know, I'm sure a lot of people would know, why would they need something like this? What do Nektar do, first of all?
Well, Nektar are traditionally known for making controller keyboards, and our approach has always been about customising the integration. We've got a range of keyboards that we've been selling now for close to 10 years, and of course the holy grail of making a controller keyboard is also working out how you want to control all of your plugins and have that in a nice, easy to use integrated environment. So Nektar's been kind of very well known for creating that customization and to making it simply work the way you want it to.
Yeah.
With controller keyboards. Now, CS12 is kind of the culmination of a lot of the intelligence that we've built up on creating the mapping sort of scenarios and the technology behind how are you going to map without having to use things like wrappers or plugin hosts, which, you know, ultimately no one likes using those things, and that really speeds up your workflow as long as you can have a direct integration and interaction with your DAW. That's what we're all about. So the CS12 is a step away from controller keyboards, of course. We're now appealing to anyone that's mixing or producing audio using their computer. In this case, the first iteration of CS12, the hardware in fact will be working with lots of different kinds of software. To begin with, we're supporting Logic Pro, and so that's what we're using today for the demonstration.
Awesome. Yeah, we have a screen right here. It's all screen recording, so hopefully you guys can see what we're looking at today. Mark's brought a lot of project with him, and I guess we're going to go through it, right? And
yeah, we're going to take a quick stroll through the basic architecture of the hardware here, and we're going to run through some of the projects so I can show you some of the basics and how it really is put together.
Cool.
I think you're going to be impressed, and I think from the marketing that we've just put out regarding this product, this is the controller that anyone that's been using Logic before has been asking for. And it's the controller that kind of Logic deserves, really. So without further ado, let me take you a little bit through what we've got in front of us.
Awesome.
So starting from the left, we have a long throw touch-sensitive motorized fader.
Can I?
Which is 10-bit in resolution. That basically means you can use that for any kind of automation and high resolution mix down. So that's just as good as you would find in a state-of-the-art mixing console. Up here you have the level meters to show you what's going on the selected channel. You have your pan control here, so you can see that's automatically connected. Nice. You have your recording arm button, your soloing, your muting, nothing too out of the ordinary there. But down here we have a select button, and I'm going to come back to that later because that's one of the highlights of the product. That's really very cool. Moving on to the center section of CS12, you've got the main high resolution color screen here, which you can see displays all of the parameters for whatever you have loaded in the channel strip directly in front of you in a kind of a 4x3 matrix. And you see that on the right hand side you've got a 3 or 4x3 matrix as well of controls. So if you're moving one of the controls here, you'll see it's corresponding with the same location on the screen.
And colours as well,
and colours
always handy.
We'll come on to the colour coding as well in just a short time. So you've got the screen there, and as you can see on this particular example, we also have 4 soft buttons underneath the display. Those display buttons allow you to access additional pages or additional functions when you're working in the DAW. You've got your whole transport section and navigation section for moving around Logic. So of course you have your stop, your play, playing back a little bit of the project now. You can use forward and rewind to step through the various parts of the project. You can move between locators. We've got a very long loop section there. If we move to using some of the marker controls, in Logic it's very easy to program markers and to remove them if you need to. So when you're in marker mode, you can simply step between the markers, as you can probably see on screen there, just by hitting those buttons. And if at any time you wanted to add a marker, if I just step through here towards the end of the screen, you simply hit the marker on shift and it creates a new marker for you, or double click and it removes the marker. As we move through the demonstration, you'll find that there's tons of little things like that that really help your workflow. So, of course, if you're using Logic, all of this is going to be completely obvious to you, and it's going to feel like you're totally at home. That's because we do all the hard work, so you don't have to, basically. It's not just a controller that's about mapping what you'd expect and delivering it to you on screen. It's about improving the workflow, and there's tons of those small but very important workflow.
I think especially for someone who hasn't used Logic for years and doesn't know all the keyboard shortcuts and all that kind of stuff. Just this is a nice way to get you working quickly, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're not too well versed in all the Logic lore.
Indeed, indeed. And in fact, one of the great things about working with a controller, and certainly working with a Nektar controller that I've used in my time with the company, is that once you start getting familiar with how the Nektar controller is working, you can then more easily start working with other DAWs, because the intelligence behind our mapping and workflow kind of optimization means that it's much easier to switch from one to another. So we've done the basic transport controls. You can also do things like setting locate positions. So hold down Shift and L, that'll create a left locate. Hold down Shift and right, and that creates the right locator, and then you can easily move between the locators.
Cool.
So there's a ton of transport and navigation controls in there. And of course, if you've got a channel strip controller, then you're typically working on the selected channel. That's what it's all about. The way in which we've developed CS12 enables you to see anything and everything that is loaded into that channel. Also on these keys here in the transport navigation section, you can see there are a couple of buttons here, one which turns on or off the selected plugin, and the other one turns on or off the mixer window. So that's really that section there. You have other kind of tools to help you see your way through what you're doing within Logic. You have a zoom control up here, so that gives you a horizontal scroll. Okay, horizontal zoom there, and if you hold down Shift, you're getting a vertical zoom straight away.
Nice.
So you can easily start seeing all the detail that you need. Obviously you can change the tempo, and you've got a data entry wheel here, which I'll get to a little bit later as well, for allowing you to obviously put some data into whatever parameters you're trying to control there. Now the fun really starts on the right hand side here. So as you can see, you've got a strip here of insert buttons, and there's 8 of those insert buttons, which you can also then switch in using the top button there, which allows you to toggle between 1 to 8 or 9 to 16. And therefore each one of these buttons represents a plugin that you've got loaded in that slot. Now if I open up and expand the mixer window, one of the things I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to change the track. I didn't show you earlier that you can step through using these buttons to move through the track, but one of those shortcuts that you have built into CS12 is that you can use the data wheel to quickly navigate your way around. So you can see there on the screen, I'm moving around to one of these channels that has a lot of plugins. And there you can see, immediately represented on the screen, is exactly that channel strip and all of the inserts that you see. Now the top button is actually lit up, which means that you can now switch between the banks, because it looks to me like we've probably got more than 8. And if I hit there you go, we've got 2 more loaded up, and I can toggle back 1 to 8 just as easily there. You mentioned before colour coding, and colour coding is actually one of the really important features that we've built into this, because, you know, left brain, right brain stuff, when you're creating, you don't want to be thinking about the technology as much as possible. And that can even be down to the level of trying to work out how, especially if you're using a controller rather than looking at the screen with your mouse, you want something to be quick and easy to recognise what it is that you're looking for.
Absolutely.
So colour coding stuff is super helpful. The colour coding that we've built into CS12 is based on the kind of plugin that you've loaded into a particular slot. So you'll notice here we've got multiple colours. Red is symbolic for a dynamics style plugin. Dark blue is an EQ, yellow is a delay, and so on and so forth. So if we hit the red button at the top there, you'll see that that's an enveloper. The next one below is a compressor. So without actually creating this project, which I didn't do, that was our good friend and colleague Tim that created this project, I know straight away that if I want to control dynamics on that channel, I'm hitting a red button and it's calling up.
And that will come in time as well, I think, with the association of the colours with whatever type of plugin you're going to be working with.
Absolutely, you'll just pick that up in no time at all. In fact, we were just at the NAMM show and I was demonstrating this, and I hadn't received a working version of the product before attending NAMM, and I had about 10 minutes with it before people started walking into the show. And it took me 10 minutes to go, oh right.
I understand.
And I got 80% of what I needed to know there and then because it's so straightforward to use. Now, the colour coding is not only on the buttons showing you what plugin you have selected, you've also got colour coding on the 360-degree pots as well. So we've loaded up a dynamics processor, and therefore we have red controls. Now you can see they're automatically mapped for whatever I'm loading up. One of the things which we didn't explain earlier actually is that we have, with Logic, mapped everything. So all of the inserts, all of the sends, all of the instruments are automatically pre-mapped for you. And this is one of the things that we've gained from working with controller keyboards over the years. We've built up all of our mapping intelligence and we've wrapped it up into something called Control Core. Now when you buy CS12, you download Control Core and it sits on your computer, and that provides all of the back-end kind of mapping information and everything that CS12 needs to know about all of the plugins for that specific DAW, feeds it all to CS12. And the other part of that kind of puzzle is that we write then a DAW integration as kind of a front end.
Yeah.
So the front end communicates to CS12 and says, well, this one's loaded, what can I do with it?
Yeah.
And then the two get married up when you're working with CS12.
Magical.
And included in that information is the color coding that we've created.
Yeah.
So you can automatically take any control, as we saw here, on anything within Logic.
That is nice.
And this will be the same whenever we come up with the next DAW integration. For example, in 2 or 3 months' time, we're hoping to have support for Cubase and Nuendo, and then we'll have support for Studio One. So for now, everything you're seeing is concerning Logic. Now, looking at that color coding, why have we got blue? Why have we got yellow? We have a number of controls here. It's a dynamics process, so you might be asking, well, what's all the color for? Well, we use color also to differentiate the functions within any particular plugin. And at the moment, we're using the compressor plugin from Logic. So you can see in blue here, this is actually controlling the kind of compressor that you're deciding to use. So if I start turning this, you'll see the actual GUI changing. And also on the display, you'll see that the number of parameters that you can map for each of these models is changing as well. So everything's pre-defined for you. And because changing the entire model of the compressor is a big deal, you're going to want to have that kind of separated from the normal red color, so you know what you're doing. Input and output gain, in this case, are in orange. And then you have yellow down the side, which is basically a function of this plugin, is that you have a limiter. Okay, so the limiter functions are separated out in yellow. You've also got the ability to control a sidechain, and on the soft buttons here, if you click sidechain, now you have all of the controls allowing you to control the sidechain.
I was going to say, I really love how everything is not exactly, but vaguely placed exactly the same where you know them to be. Do you know what I mean? So we having all the stuff for the limiters and the mix on the right-hand side where you know they are on a compressor and Logic. I mean, it's just nice. I like that. You know, it's nice. It's all associated. If you're already somewhat educated in Logic, everything is where you'd expect it to be. Even on something as like simple as this, like the actual controls are vaguely where they actually are on the plugin that you're used to already.
Absolutely.
Which is really nice. Yeah.
That's obviously the customization. It really allows us to smooth out that part of the process. Often when you encounter a plugin maybe with hundreds of parameters, when you get hundreds of parameters thrown at you, the big challenge for anyone developing this kind of stuff, to be honest, is that those parameters can be delivered in any order, and they can have very, very weird, spurious names. So what we've done is we've tried to eliminate all of that confusion and lay everything out in a way that makes sense. Now, of course, a lot of people might be asking, well, that's fine if you're working with Logic plugins and Logic Sends, for example. What if you're using a third-party plugin? Well, we've mapped also a ton of third-party plugins over the years, and all of that intelligence is also provided with CS12. Oh, we have got a third-party plugin on this channel. So we're going to choose Pro Q3. Okay, so if I hit now the top button, we should call up the interface, and we're using an evaluation copy. And there you can see the interface of Pro Q3. And now you see how the color coding can really work, and how the 4x3 matrix makes a lot of sense. It's called CS12 because you have 12 controls. And when you're working with parametric EQ, you normally want to have 4 bands of 3 controls. So all of your Q controls are here. You can see, of course, that everything is immediately underhand. You have all of your separate channels, all of your separate bands available to you. And you have soft buttons underneath also, which can be color coded to turn those bands on or off.
Oh, I love
now,
that.
of course, that also works if you are working with the channel EQ. So I'm just going to move a few channels down where I can see we've got a channel EQ loaded.
So motorized faders are always just like, I want it immediately the second I hear and see a motorized fader.
They're very, very cool. And we've actually built in some new automation modes, which I'll come to towards the end of the presentation.
Sorry.
No, right, no, it's cool. No, it's cool. It's all very exciting, and you know, it's easy to sort of get drawn into some part of the functionality and then have to be pulled back to something else. You see here we've got the channel strip plugins available to us here. Again, all color coded independently, as you saw before. If I choose now the Logic EQ, then you'll see there's a different color coding system. I know I keep going on about the color coding, but if you look into the Logic standard interface there, then the lower bands are in red, and then you move to orange, and then you have to turn them on, otherwise you don't see them, then yellow and green. And here, this really shows you, when you've got pages and pages of parameters, all of the soft buttons can actually give you access to a whole range of functions. So you hit the bands 5 to 8 key, and the color coding changes, and you see then you can turn on or off all of these additional bands and start tweaking to your heart's content. Now, when you're producing and mixing, you really want to have 2 things. You want to be able to quickly and easily tweak the parameter that you want, but you also want to really control it in a very, very fine way so that you're creating nuances and a delicate mix down. So if you look, and as I'm turning this very, very slowly, you'll see it's stepping slightly. Okay, from one parameter to another, it's actually moving in 800 Hertz steps. That means that you can easily move in one control, one turn of your hand there, from the full range of the EQ. But of course, you might want to start, really fine-tuning that. So you've got a magnifier key here, which is the fine control. So if I hold that down, now we're moving in, instead of 7-bit resolution, we're moving in 10-bit resolution. So you've got thousands and thousands of steps to move. Now it takes me 8 or 9 turns to move all the way across instead of 1. Okay, and that level of control can be assigned to any parameter that you want. So we just happen to be looking at EQ now, but you could assign that to anything. Same works for the panning. And of course, the same actually works for the motorized fader. So if you're looking at the screen there, you can see we have a full long throw motorized fader. And now if I turn magnifier on, you'll see it's moved to a 14-bit resolution. That's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
And you simply hit the button again to turn off the fine control. So that's very, very cool indeed. And we are jumping around from one thing to another slightly here, but I really want to jump straight away now to this button here, select, which we identified right at the beginning of the demo. It's all very well having everything mapped out for you, but what if you just simply in the middle of your creative flow, you want to just grab whatever you can see in front of you. So if I just move to another plugin here now, another vintage EQ, okay, I don't know anything about this plugin.
Okay, no, me neither.
Deliberately called up something randomly there. And let's say, for example, that I didn't realise there was a map in the system, and I just want to control this frequency here. If I hold the select down, now I'm completely controlling that band of that EQ using the long throw fader, which I can now automate in either 10-bit or 14-bit resolution.
Okay, so is that whatever your mouse is over?
And that's whatever you're deciding to touch. So I'm in that channel now. I can even move to a completely different plugin, and now if I've still got the select button pressed and I want to change that reverb level, then I'm now controlling that.
That is cool.
It's super fast, and you don't have to engage your brain, you simply hold the select key. It also assigns the pan pot there as well, so if you want to control a pan pot, you can easily do that, and of course, motorized fader will be following. And then the moment you switch off select, then you're back to your channel volume.
Yeah.
So that's super cool. You can really assign that to anything that you want, whether it's a plugin, whether it's a parameter, which is showing up from your channel in the mixer. It could be anything at all.
I mean, it's all these things in combination. It's these kind of creature comforts that's what speeds up your workflow so much, right? I mean, like I know you apologised about the colours, but talking about the colours, but that's exactly why there's something like this exists, right? It's to speed up your workflow.
Absolutely.
And then, yeah, no, this is very cool. And when
even
you
in third party here,
yeah.
I mean, I showed you that select control in a Logic plugin, but as soon as you click on one of the bands in Q3, for example, then you see this little panel appear underneath. And if I wanted to change the frequency there, I'm there.
Yeah.
I just hit select and it's done. Now I'm back to channel volume.
Yeah.
So it's super easy to get control of any parameter that you want.
Yeah, and hopefully the idea is you wouldn't struggle with something like this. But even if you were struggling to find the parameter you wanted to adjust, just being able to, you know, hover your mouse over something, click it, and then suddenly I can start.
Absolutely.
You know, that's pretty cool, man.
Two things that we haven't discussed yet.
Okay.
One is that as much as we've seen there for the insert effects, there's also a button here for sends. If you hit the sends button, then you can control the level directly for whichever sends you've already set up in your project. Obviously, that's pretty important.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to, you can mute all the sends by holding down Shift, or you can mute the individual plugins by operating in the same way. Just hold the Shift key down, and you can mute or unmute various individual plugins. So that's very, very helpful. And in addition to the sends, you've got this channel button. Again, the channel button is color coded. If I move from one track to another, you'll see the channel color is changing as well. That is corresponding to the color that you've set up in Logic for your track.
Okay.
So it's very easy, again, for you to modify that.
Yeah.
You assign a channel strip color, and if you change it, you look here, I'm now changing it on the screen, and it's changed to blue. If you're color coding your tracks such that you're grouping together all of your drums or all of your various different kinds of instruments.
Which generally we should be.
Which we should be if we're very...
if we're organised.
Organised,
Which
yes.
none of us are.
Oh, it's terrible, isn't it? But yeah, you usually do it at some stage during a project, but not at the beginning for some reason. So you have access to that there. If I get rid of the mixer here and I just zoom to a high resolution again, as we discussed before, we could start to see some automation. But I just want to use this track to show you what you can do with automation. Mm-hmm. Now, if you hold down the auto button and turn the data entry wheel, then you'll see one of the hidden menus. Okay, these are the standard Logic automation modes that you see. Okay, but then at the bottom, there's 3 custom developed automation modes that we've created for CS12. Auto touch, which basically means if you're now looking at the channel, if I'm touching fader,
I like that.
It's now meaning that if I enter play mode, I can start creating that automation data. And when I let go, it reverts back to the original level. There's a ton of data that's been written there. And if I want to get rid of that now, I can simply hit the undo button. I forgot to mention that we have undo.
Oh, that's always handy.
That's always handy. We always make mistakes. So that's the first automation mode. And these automation modes are super important because they are based on the touch sensitivity of the fader. We also have built-in auto latch, pretty much the same as what we've just showed you, but it remembers the last level that you were touching the fader. And then the third one, we think is an automation model that's never been seen before.
Okay.
So this is pretty cool. So if you look at the playhead now, I'm over here in a blank area, and now I'm in single point touch mode. Right. So what it's doing is it's creating a point when I take my finger off the fader. So I'm actually stepping through just one bar at a time to show you in simple terms. But of course, this will also function when you're playing and recording automation in real time. It's just that it's more straightforward to show you here in this fashion. And of course, the beauty of having single point automation is when you come to editing what you have programmed in there. You saw before that when you're creating automation using, regular, more traditional styles, you're creating a ton of data. So there even on that very, very small automation we recorded, you can see here, there's a ton of steps, and if you want to go in there and start to try and edit and modify that section, it can be quite difficult and fiddly. So if we're moving ahead, again, in our project to the automation data we just wrote, and I change that resolution back so we can see it easier. Now, I can go in and I can simply modify the points that we've already created, whether it's with the controller or indeed with the mouse. With CS12, we're not actually saying that you have to completely change your whole model of working and only concentrate on the controller. You know, we fully appreciate you're also going to want to reach and grab for the mouse from time to time. And as you've seen, you know, with the select function, for example, that's something that you want to do. You want to reach for the parameter and then you can start using it on the controller. And when you're controlling automation here, of course, you can simply grab whole regions.
Yeah, much less data heavy.
Much less data heavy, and much easier to see and to create the effect that you would like. That
Wicked.
pretty much wraps up everything we can show you today. We're super excited. Like I said at the beginning, it's the first product really that is going to be appealing for people in mixing and production, as well as those in like music creation and writing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're expecting this one to do very, very nicely.
Awesome. I mean, if people want to find out even more about this, can they? Is there going to be something available on the Nektar website, or
absolutely? Head over to nektar.com, nektartech.com, and the product page is up there. And we have some videos. Sonic State currently hosting a video, which is one that we recorded at NAMM. But we are coming up with more content.
Awesome.
You know, daily, where you can learn more. If you go to the website, actually, at the bottom of that page for the CS12, you can also download the manual, take a sneak peek through that.
Oh yeah, that'd be handy.
That really helps.
This is one of those products where there's just so many features, I think, inside, and there's a million things you'll pick up the more and more you use it, and oh, well, it's mad. I mean, are these available now? Are these available to buy?
Well, Andertons is actually very lucky. You've got the first 3 units that have come into the UK. The main stock shipment is coming in about 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay.
But of course, we are taking pre-orders. We have pre-orders from all over the world. We have some stock shipping already in the States. We've got product on the water to coming to Europe now. So yeah, it will soon hit the shores here.
Okay,
so,
around how much we're talking?
Well, £349.99.
Okay, reasonable.
Is the retail price. It's very reasonable.
Very reasonable.
If, you know, I don't like to talk about the competition, but you look at some other channel strip controller style products, they are very, very well made. They're very, very beautiful. But you will find they are
very expensive.
Sometimes significantly more expensive. So we feel that with the CS12, yeah, it's going to be appealing to everybody, whether they're working at home as a bedroom producer, or whether they're working a top flight studio and they're plonking this on their big console. Yeah, it's something which everyone can get to grips with.
Awesome. Well, links below for that, guys. Be sure to check everything out below. I've been Oz.
I've been Mark from Nektar.
And subscribe. See you soon.
Thanks very much, Oz.
Wicked.
Cheers.